Everyone. So here is our painting that we'll do for our November virtual mini art. I hope you have fun with this one. I know I enjoyed painting this. This is one where you may want to use some of your metallic colors, so if you have some of those, you'll want to get those out. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to either send me an email or post your question below the video and I'll take a look at it and I'll respond back as soon as I can. Have fun! Alright, so let's get started by going through our supplies. So you want to pick up your 5x7-inch canvas, and mine here is pre-treated with the khaki color paint. So you can leave yours white if you want to, but I kind of like to have a little bit of a base. This provides some nice undertones, so I would recommend using your khaki color to first cover your canvas and then let that dry before you begin. I've got 3 different sized brushes. I've got my wide round head brush. I've got the same design in a smaller brush. And then I've got a thinner brush that I'll use for some of the details. But feel free to use whatever brushes feel good to you. You're definitely going to want a little bit of water and some paper towels. And of course your colors. Okay, so you're going to have a little bit of burnt umber, some classic caramel, antique white, king's gold, pale daffodil, harvest orange, we've got fuchsia, cool blue, dark blue gray, summer sky, purple iris, and I have added a couple of metallic colors too. I've got a little bit of a metallic purple, a little bit of a metallic kind of a silver color. Alrighty, now for this one, I didn't do any sketching at all. I just jumped right into the painting. So what you're going to want to do is sort of pick where you want your moon to go. So it can work if you find that top half of your canvas, and then you're going to find the left side of that top half. So right about here is where I'm going to start painting my moon. And you want your moon like a little bit bigger than $50. And of course, if you want, you can trace it if you want to. But if you decide to just jump right into the painting, what you're going to do is you're going to use your brush to give it most of that shape. So you're sort of rotating your wrist a little bit. There we go. So you can see it comes out pretty good when you rotate. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. But as you can see, I'm just sort of twisting. There we are. I want this just a little bit bigger. And feel free to turn your canvas. Look at it from different angles to make sure it's nice and round. Nice and symmetrical. And this is antique white, or antique parchment, excuse me. So you could use a pure white if you wanted to. I found this to have a little bit of a nicer glow to it. It had just a touch of like a warmish yellowish in there. So that's why I chose this. There. Okay, so I think I'm happy with that. And the moon has a tendency, I feel like, to grow as you paint. So if it's a little small right now, that's totally fine, because as you sort of freshen up and perfect that perimeter, it might grow a little bit. And I'm just going to start with that. I'm going to give that brush a rinse, and that's my largest brush that I'm using. Give that a good rinse, and I'm going to go ahead and dip right into my dark blue-gray. Get plenty of that on my brush. And I'm using short strokes going in different directions. And what I'm doing is I'm spreading all that paint around that is on there before I get any more. So in other words, you're going for a very thin coat. And we're going to focus on this top half of your canvas first. So you want to cover, but you don't want to cover so much that you can no longer see those brush strokes, because that's actually kind of nice. Okay. And I'm going to get close to the moon. I'm not going to go right up to the edge yet, but I just want to get close. And I'll use a smaller brush in a moment to kind of perfect that. Okay, so I've got a little bit of a rim right around that moon. So you can see a little bit of that nice color from the background is coming through. Okay, now what I'm going to do is for this next, if I break what I've got left in half, this next third here, I am going to use some lighter blue mixed with this. Then for this, I'm going to use a bright blue. All right, so I'm not rinsing my brush at all. I'm just dabbing a little bit into my dark gray blue and a little bit into my summer sky. So you're going to focus it into this middle third, but I'm also bringing some of it up into that top half. So now I'm going to just brush a few strokes up here. As I like this color I've got, I want to spread it around a little bit. I'm just blurring that line between the two. Okay, and that's okay if you accidentally paint your moon a little bit. We'll go back and we'll fix that. Okay, so you want your sky to have a little bit of texture. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of those two colors along with this nice cool blue. I'm going to start in the middle on this bottom third and work my way out. This color spreads really nicely, this cool blue. So you want to have the whole canvas covered. Okay, now just lightly, I'm going to carry some of that blue into a couple of different spots. So I didn't add any more to the brush. I am just lightly swiping across the other parts of the canvas and letting just whatever paint is on the brush just come off. And I'm doing this lightly because I want to give the sky sort of that foggy look. And if you do it too hard, you might wipe more of the paint off. And you want to put a little paint on, as well as smoothing out a little bit. There we go. Okay. And also, you certainly, at any point, feel free to add a little bit more. Add the color that you like most. So I'm just thickening this up a little bit. I just took a little more of my blue-gray. And if you notice, you might hit a point where it feels like more is wiping off. So just take a break at that point. Like right here, for example. I keep going over that spot. Okay, so I'm just going to let this dry a little bit. And what I can do is, as I work, if I want, I can touch this up a little bit further. But for now, this looks good. Okay, giving this brush a rinse and a nice dry. And I'm going to switch to that medium-sized brush. So that's this one. So I'm going to use that. Let's see, I'm going to take a little of my dark blue gray, and now I'm going to go use this smaller brush and go right up to the edge of the moon. The trick in doing this is to not go too slow. You almost have to move your brush kind of fast so that you get a nice continuous stroke. And feel free to turn your canvas too. There. All right, so what I'm doing is, it's a nice pure shade right around the moon. So I'm just spreading it a little bit, pulling it a little bit outward. There we go. Okay, so that kind of makes the moon stand out a little bit. All right, giving this brush a rinse. I'm gonna go right inside the moon now. So for this inside of the moon, I'm going to be using a little bit of this pale yellow and a little bit of this classic caramel. I'm going to start with just a little bit of this classic caramel, just dabbing a little bit off of that brush. But you can pull up a picture of the moon if you want to. Just kind of dabbing. And the paint below is like a little bit wet, not too much, but a little bit, so it's blending nicely. There. I'm gonna take a little bit of yellow. Let's see, maybe put a little bit here. And then I'm just kind of blending right into the center. Can get a little bit of that antique parchment too. So there's some dabbing and a very little spreading. Mostly dabbing. Very small bits of paint. But you can see dabbing creates a lovely effect. And then I'm adding a little more antique parchment to it, just to break it up a little bit more. There we go. And what you can do too is, as you work, because we're gonna layer this a little bit more, can clean up your perimeter as you go. So when I do that, I put a little on the edge, and then anything excess I just pull right into the middle and then dab it around. And that's kind of how you get that moon look. All right, I'm just gonna turn this because I'd like to work on it right up here. So I'm gonna take a little bit of that classic caramel, mix it with a little bit of that parchment. And I'm going to take a teeny bit of that yellow, put a little of that over here. this back over and take a look. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm gonna let that dry a little bit. I may touch it up a little bit along the way. All right, so I'm going to add a little bit more into my sky. Let's see, I'm gonna take a little bit of my summer sky. Because now that it's dry, I just want to blend a little bit more color in there, give it just a tad more variation. So, I'm just going to kind of mix a few things together. And what you want to do is sort of maintain that crisp ring around the moon. That contrast will look really nice. That white and yellow against the that dark blue. Going to stop and leave it at this, okay? All right, so the sky doesn't have to be perfect because we're gonna start covering it a little bit. We're gonna add some of that brush. Okay, so give those brushes a rinse and you can set those aside for the time being. All right, and we're gonna move over to our smallest thin brush here. And we're going to use a little bit of our burnt umber. So that's that dark brown. And what we're going to do is we're going to start painting some of the tree trunks. You want to do different widths, different heights. I like to start on the outside and then sort of work my way in. Just lightly touch that brush to the canvas. And in this original here, you can see you're not going to see a ton of this, so it doesn't have to be perfect. But you do want to get something on there. That way it serves as a guide for where you want to do your leaves. So as you can see, I started sort of making the trees higher on the edges. And as I move inward, I'm going to make them a little bit shorter. Okay, and what I'm also going to do, well, I've got a little bit of this brown on my brush, and I'm going to dab into a little bit of that khaki, just sort of adding a little something to this ground here. So that's burnt umber and classic caramel. I'm even going to take a little blue, why not? There we go. Okay, so I've taken a little bit of my dark blue gray as well. So I've dabbed a little bit, and then I'm using some strokes. So it doesn't, this is like the ground kind of covered in a little bit of like leaves and dirt and stuff, so it doesn't have to be perfect. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, now I'm going to switch brushes. I'm going to go back to this brush here, and I am now going to start with some dabbing. So I sort of jump around and I use my darker colors first. So I'm going to use some browns. I'm going to even add a little bit of blue and purple, and then once I get that on there, I'm going to move into my orange, yellow, pink. Okay, so first let's see, and I'm just going to do a little bit of mixing right on here, and so I get it a pretty decent amount on there, and then the first thing I'm doing is I'm just dabbing, and think trees, so you kind of know what shape trees are. So you'll just keep that in mind. You don't want to just randomly dab. You sort of want to follow where you've put your trunks, and then a little bit outside of that. Okay, so I'm now going to add a little bit of purple in there. And the thing too is, what works well is to add a little bit and then dab it all around, so that you don't just have one blob of a color. So if you notice how I did that, I just sort of dabbed all around. And we're going to be doing a little bit of layering here. There we go. And just to keep things as balanced as I can, I'm going to move over to this side. I'm even adding a little of that dark blue gray. Putting a little bit of my metallic purple. So as you can see, I'm sort of just still focusing on these tops here. And just dabbed a little bit into my sky blue. And I sort of like creating that balance. I'm trying to, whatever I do on one side, I'm trying to add a little bit to the other. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that for now. I'm going to grab a little bit of my orange next. Dab a little bit of that in there. Trick too is you don't want to over dab. So you don't want mud. Ooh, look at that nice yellow. I feel like that really brings it to life. Well, I've got that on there. I'm going to add a little bit to a couple other sections. So once you kind of get going, you'll sort of notice that you're jumping around with your colors. Just take what color you're ready for. I'm not even rinsing my brush because this mixing of colors is working for me. So I'm going to just replenish my paint here, but I'm not rinsing. I hope you find this nice and relaxing. Oops. As I get closer to this bottom here, I'm adding a little more of my blues, but still doing that dabbing to give it a little bit of texture. So as I'm doing the brush, I'm sort of thinking like bushes kind of mixing together a little bit. so right about here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my detail brush again, and I'm going to just put back a couple of those trunks that kind of disappeared. And I'm going to add a few teeny little strokes right up in the front. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to keep using this small detail brush, and we're going to add any additional details with that. So I'm going to go mostly for my light colors now, but in dabbing some of this on, you're going to give a different size leaf on there. It'll just add a little bit of detail. And you can do as much of this as you want. You could do this for quite a while if you felt like it. So it's up to you how long you want to spend on this. Right. Next thing, you're just going to take a look at your moon, make sure you like it. Just going to flip my canvas a little bit, and I'm just going to refine this a little bit more. And there we are. So if you wanted to, you could absolutely add some stars. You could add a little more of a cloud coverage if you wanted to. And you could absolutely keep going with your details. I'm just going to use a teeny bit of my pink here. Only need a tiny, tiny bit. But there we go. I am going to stop pretty soon. Sometimes with this kind of thing, it can be very easy to just keep going. It can be hard to know exactly when to stop. Okay. And there we go. Okay. All right. So that is about it. Oh, I almost forgot to add my metallic silver. So you can add that to your moon if you want to, using my medium-sized brush. Just a teeny little bit. You could just put it wherever you want, really. I'm just going to put a little on that side. A little bit right in there. Just rubbing that around. There we go. Okay. And that is it. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to send me an email or leave your question posted below this video. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have fun with this one.